So we're going to crack into this right now. Wow, that's a nice pour for you there.
It is nice. It's got a light golden brown.
Yeah, so this is grown right here in the fields right behind you. This is Pennsylvania rye whiskey. You know, if you just take a little smell of that, you're going to pick up a lot of things just off of the smell.
The caramel notes.
Yeah, I really enjoy it. So you get a lot just off of smelling this stuff, but it's not quite as fun as drinking it. So cheers. Yeah, here's to all the vets.
All the veterans out there, this one's for you.
I'm Carrie Varohaikis, and welcome to the new Army Matters. It's Friday, June 1st, 2012. A woman, accompanied by her husband, goes to the hospital for a routine visit and procedure. Afterwards, the two are excited to leave for their favorite lunch spot, but are interrupted by doctors with worried looks. Something's up. Something's wrong. She sits down and waits to hear what they have to say. It's cancer. This is the story of Jodi Butters and her husband, Chad. But don't worry, it has a happy ending. Jodi survived months of treatments, chemotherapy, and surgeries, and this led the couple to reevaluate their lives. Putting together a list of what was important to them, really important to them, allowed them to make life-altering changes. In today's episode, host SMA retired Dan Dailey speaks to Chief Warrant Officer 5 retired Chad Butters about that pivotal moment at the hospital and how it inspired him to retire from the Army so he and Jodi could finally start their own business. We'll find out how they've turned Eight Oaks Distillery into a success, what life is like for them today, and, yes, Chad even allows Dan to sample some of his products, as you heard in the intro. Let's jump into Chad and Jodi's inspiring and insightful story. Enjoy.
Hello, everyone. I'm Sergeant of the Army retired Dan Dailey, and welcome to today's episode of Soldier Today. Each year, tens of thousands of soldiers leave the Army, whether it's after 1 or 2 terms or even 20 plus years. Some go to school, some go to work, and others pursue the American dream of owning their own business. Today's guest, former Chief Warrant Officer Chad Butters, found his journey to business through a dramatic family event. Today, Chad is the co-founder of Eight Oaks, a successful distillery in New Tripoli, Pennsylvania. Chad joins us to tell his story, describe the hardships and triumphs of his journey, and maybe give us some beverage recommendations as well. Chad, welcome to the Soldier Today show.
I'm glad to be here. Been looking forward to this.
And we're glad to be up here in this beautiful farm country in Pennsylvania. We're going to get to that in just a minute. But we're going to start, as we always do here on the Soldier Today show, by getting to know our guest. Chad, could you share with us a little bit about yourself? Where'd you grow up, and what was the one particular moment that inspired you to become a soldier?
I was born in Charleston, South Carolina, and my dad worked to build power plants. So you'd finish a power plant in about 2 years, and every 2 years we'd move. So we got to see a lot of the country and experience a lot of different places and different regions. And we like to say our roots are wide. They're not very deep, but they're really wide. That kind of childhood really lent itself to going into the military. We were used to moving, kind of created a sense of adventure for us. And so, at 19, enlisted in the military as a 67 Romeo Apache repairman and didn't look back. In 95, I went to flight school, ended up flying Blackhawks. And then after that, I ended up going as an instructor pilot, went to Korea, went to the fixed wing course in Fort Rucker, Alabama. And to make a long story short, flew airplanes until 2015. And that's when I retired.
Is aviation still in your life and your future?
Absolutely. Yeah. I went away from aviation for a few years as we got this business started. Finally got it to a place where my daughter ran the show on a day-to-day basis, and she let me go away and play and went back to the airlines. And now I fly for a major airline right out of Allentown here. So, yeah.
That flight license is active then.
It is. It is active, yes.
I'll tell you, that's one of the great things about the Army. It teaches you so many skills you can use for the rest of your life, and it also teaches you to deal with adversity, I believe. Now, Chad, in the intro, we talked about the point in your life that made you reevaluate everything, made you reestablish new priorities. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I would love to. So in 2012, June 1st, 2012 to be exact, my wife went into the hospital for a routine procedure. And we had talked about how we were going to go have some lunch, and we're really looking forward to where we were going to go eat lunch. And a couple of doctors came around the corner, and they were moving at a pretty brisk pace. I still remember their white jackets kind of floating behind them, and we knew something was wrong. So they immediately just looked at my wife and said, I hate to inform you, but you have cancer. And at the time, she was 49 years old, and we considered ourselves still pretty young, and we're not tracking anything like that at all. So it was quite the wake-up call for us. After that, she ended up doing treatments, chemo, radiation surgeries, things like that. At that time, I was active duty and was able to take a lot of time off to help her recover. So we had a lot of good quality time to spend with each other, which was unusual, actually. So we had days and nights that we could spend together and just talk about what we thought was important. And one of those days we said, you know what, let's just make a list of everything it would take to make us exceptionally happy.
Yeah. And what was on that list?
You know, we thought it might include hundreds of items. It came down to just a few. It was spend more time with friends and family. We wanted to start a family business. We had adult kids at the time, and we wanted to do something that they could participate in. We wanted to do something with agriculture because we've always appreciated agriculture and thought it would be an interesting field to be in. And we wanted to have a good time, and we wanted to be home together every night. That was it. You know, those are the things that become very important in that moment. So for us, that moment was just an opportunity to dial up the clarity knob to 12 so that we could really take stock in what was important in life. And those were the few things that came up.
Yeah. And how is Jodi doing today?
She's doing well. I appreciate you asking, but I will tell you she's still in treatment even today. So she celebrated her 10-year anniversary just this past June, and she is going into chemo again this next Tuesday, so just a few days from now. She still fights the fight, and, you know, again, the Army spouse never quits, right?
That's right. Yeah, they keep us strong. Behind every good soldier is a great spouse.
That's fact.
It's very obvious you've been true to task when you sat down and decided to start your own business. Can you walk us through your process in deciding what to do? How did you get from flying the friendly skies to running shine in the farm country of Pennsylvania?
You know, what was interesting to me and what I would encourage anybody that's thinking about entrepreneurship or planning their future is start with what is your purpose in your life and with your family. So that's what we did. We took several months and we looked at all kinds of different opportunities that checked off that list. And it ranged from anywhere from pick your own pumpkin patch to, you know, farmer's market type growing vegetables to all kinds of things. And momentarily we thought about starting a brewery. And then we thought, you know, instead of that, why don't we grow grains and kind of have that same business model as a brewery or a winery, but do it with whiskey instead. And at that point in time, there wasn't a whole lot of craft distillers on the scene. And so it seemed like it was something that would be beneficial as a business, and it also checked all the blocks on the list.
Chad, you mentioned it a little bit earlier, but what do you think the Army taught you or failed to teach you about starting and running your own business?
The civilian sector really does not get the level of leadership training that we get in the service, right? And understanding how to build a team and understanding how to take care of people. I think that's a huge critical skill set that you need to have polished as an entrepreneur starting your own business. Your number one thing is to take care of your people, right? So that absolutely translates without hesitation. I think when I look at things that maybe, you know, I needed to take care of on my own as far as getting additional training, obviously the technical aspects of distilling that didn't come through necessarily in the military training. But the other part was just the understanding of finance, right? So I went to Drexel University just down the road here in Philadelphia. They offered an MBA program, and so I took that program, and that filled in a lot of the academic holes of marketing and branding and some of the legal aspects of owning a business. And finance and accounting and that skill set that you really do need to have in order to run a business. Those were gaps that I needed to fill. And so, you fill those academically, and then you try the best you can to be prepared, and you dive into the deep end and you figure out what you don't know and try to learn as fast as you possibly can.
Yeah, I'm proud to say that two of the things I learned as a soldier are brute strength and ignorance. It's taken me far in life. You just got to get out there and get after it. We have to take a quick break now, but when we come back, we'll hear more from Chad about the spirits business and what obstacles he had to overcome.
Join AUSA, the Army's premier professional association and host of the largest land power exposition in the United States. AUSA is open to everyone, including all ranks and components. So whether you have a relationship with the U.S. Army or simply want to honor those who serve, you can learn more at ausa.org/join.
We're back and talking with Chief Warrant Officer retired Chad Butters about how he transitioned into the spirits business. Hey, Chad, why don't we just jump into it? Now, I'm a home brewer, and I think I know a little bit about the beer industry, but not much about spirits. But I can only imagine it is highly competitive. What makes Eight Oaks Distillery unique from the rest?
Yeah, I think, number one, where we start is with purpose. It's our commitment to make our community a better place. We're a farm distillery. We grow all our own grains, wheat, rye, corn, barley, with the help of folks that I just talked to this morning, Don and Joel Newhart, who do the hard work of driving the tractor. And I think that makes us unique. We truly do it. We say from land to land. It's not really from grain to glass. That's a linear process. We're more of a circular process. We start from the land. The land gives us the ability to grow the grain. The grain gives us the ability to make the spirit. The spirit gives us the ability to create the community. The community supports us and gives back to the land. And so it's just one big cycle. And really, that's what we're all about, is if we can continue to do that, then, that's success for us.
Yeah, and that is unique because most distilleries and breweries all across the country buy their commercial products from commercial farms. Me as a home brewer, I buy my grains from a commercial farm. I'd love to grow them in my backyard, but that's impressive. And if you come out here, you'll see how impressive this operation is because the farm is literally behind the distillery.
It is.
You can't get any fresher than that. Nope. I don't think you can.
I think we are closest to the source.
Chad, I think that one of the best things we can do to help anyone considering starting their own business is to share the lessons we've learned ourselves. And a lot of those lessons are through mistakes. What did you do wrong when starting Eight Oaks? And what would you do differently?
I think anybody would tell you whenever you develop a business plan, the only thing that you know for a fact is that's not going to happen. Right. So the business plan is important to develop, but you got to know that that's not going to happen. I go back now. I actually just did a veterans group workshop on business planning here at the distillery just a couple weeks ago. And I dusted off our old business plan just to show people the reality of how far off it actually was. And ours was wildly far off. So number one is you're going to start off, if you're going to start a business, you're probably going to need 3 times the amount of money and 3 times the amount of time. And you're going to only make half the amount of revenue that you think you're going to make. So you got to make those numbers work first. Certainly my weakness was just the overall knowledge of running a business. And the way we shored that up is through, our team. We have a team of people that are much smarter than myself in a lot of different aspects. And that's who we rely on to make good decisions. It is absolutely a community effort. When you think about an entrepreneur, it sounds singular. It sounds like that's one person. It might be one person with the vision, but it takes 50, 100, 200 people by the time that you look at all of the people that are involved. And each of those need to be doing a certain task at a certain time. And if it wasn't for the community of help behind this, it absolutely wouldn't have happened.
Yeah. And now I can see, the way you do this from ground to glass, you can see how your military experience and your leadership knowledge and skills have been able to build an incredible team. Because we met some of them this morning. We're going to see some of them this afternoon when, unfortunately, we have to sample some product. But it is about building an incredible team. So, okay, it's time to satisfy the curiosity of our listeners.
All right.
And talk about spirits.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah. Can you give us a rundown on the spirits you produce and which is your favorite?
Yeah, absolutely. We have a whole bunch of spirits that we make, and we're finally kind of honing in on what the farm has given us, to make. So right now we do anything from a vodka, gin, we do rum and Applejack, which is an apple cider based spirit. We do bourbon and rye whiskey and even a tequila in there. So lately we've been kind of refining that down, and we're really going to pay more attention to the bourbon and the rye whiskey and the Applejack and really focus on those. But, they say that, as a parent, you have multiple kids, you don't have a favorite, but we all know that you have a favorite, right? And so same thing with our product line. And I absolutely have a favorite. And my favorite is rye whiskey. It's just, it's a Pennsylvania tradition since before this nation was a nation. And it's something that we grow from the ground up, and we enjoy making and enjoy drinking even more.
Well, as a parent, I lie to my son all the time and tell him he's my favorite because he's the only one I got.
There you go. Lucky you.
Earlier, we were having a conversation before we jumped on the podcast, and you had just come in from what you hope to be a future potential farmer to help you out so you can expand. Could you describe that process from the time you plant a seed in the farm? How long does it take to get into a glass in the distillery?
It depends on the product that you're making. When you think about growing grain, it's not like you can just go out there and plant the seed and wait for it to grow and then harvest it and use it. You have to hit it at the right time of year, and it has to follow the crop that was ahead of it that's mutually beneficial. So crop rotation is a big piece of this.
Yeah, so you're not draining the soil of all nutrients.
You got to keep the soil fertilized and rich. So you have to rotate those crops. We do wheat, rye, corn, and barley here. And we are looking at what we're planting in the fall so that we can harvest next summer, that we will use the following year to actually produce, that will then age in a barrel for 3 more years. So we're looking at our sales projection for 5 to 6 years out, just trying to make an educated guess on what we think will sell at that point. And then backwards planning, which should be familiar to most people on this podcast. You backwards plan from your objective all the way back to your current place. And that's exactly what we do. And then you work out the simple math. Thank goodness it's simple math, so I can do it and doesn't take too complicated of an Excel spreadsheet. Really, the rule of thumb is we get about 3 cases per bushel, and we get about 125 to 175 bushels per acre. So with just that rule of thumb, you can kind of figure out the amount of land that you need to plant and the varieties that you need to plant so that you can harvest, store, and then process and hopefully one day sell.
Yeah, this isn't like looking at sales from last quarter and projecting revenue for the next quarter. This is 6 years in some regards, especially when you're making a bourbon, which is my favorite spirit.
Yeah.
Now, for our veterans out there, you're a veteran, and Chad is a very proud veteran here. You do a special veteran piece throughout the year, don't you? Could you tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, we do. So we release this Veterans Cut product usually right around Veterans Day, and $25 of each bottle goes directly to a local organization here. It's the Northwestern Memorial Wall Foundation, and they have built an incredible wall that SMA was kind enough to come up and help us dedicate several months back. And that wall not only lists the people that served and were killed in action, but it also lists everyone that served, to include people that are still with us. It's just recognizing service across the board. And it's a beautiful, beautiful memorial that I think would be at home even in Washington, D.C., let alone here in Little New Tripoli. So if you're ever in our neck of the woods, come on up. Let's grab a thing of whiskey and we'll go over there and sit down and check it out.
What advice, before we close, Chad, would you give our veterans out there? All of us that are in the Army say, I'm going to get out and start a business someday.
Yeah.
And I hope many of them do. What advice would you give them?
One of the things that I was given a piece of advice a long time ago, and it's a simple one, and I share it with a lot of our crew. Our crew, as you can probably imagine, we've got a fairly young crew, 25, 26 years old. So a lot of times we'll have conversations like this. And I got a piece of advice that if you show up on time, and on time, as we all know, is 10 minutes early, because on time is late. If you show up dressed the right way, and if you show up with a great attitude, you're already at the top 10% of your peer group, just with those things. So if you just do that, find yourself that purpose, and then there's no doubt you'll rock whatever you're after.
And then the rest is just brute strength and ignorance, right?
You've got to have both of those, man. Yeah, you got to have both of those. You can't do it without brute strength and ignorance. That's a fact.
Well, Chad, it was a pleasure to have you with us on the show. And I know our listeners enjoyed it as well. If someone were interested in learning more about Eight Oaks, how do they find you? Where do they go?
Yeah, you can hit us on the Google machine. Just put Eight Oaks Farm Distillery in there, and it'll give you all kinds of information. We're on all the social media, and check out our website. And man, by all means, when you're up in our neck of the woods, come visit the farm. Yeah, this is fun. I'll show you around.
Yep, it's just a stone throw away from major cities, DC, New York, and a beautiful place to come visit, and lots of other things around here in the area. Our time has come to an end to close this edition of Army Matters. All of us here at Soldier Today and the Association of United States Army want to thank Chad Butters for sharing his story and his journey to becoming a veteran entrepreneur. As Army alums, I can say from all of us across the country, thank you for your incredible service and all you continue to do to honor our service members. Join us next week for another great podcast.
To all our listeners, thanks for joining us. Army Matters is brought to you by the Association of the United States Army, the U.S. Army's professional association, member-supported, Army-connected. Visit us at ausa.org for more information or to become a member. Your membership helps AUSA continue to carry out its mission, educate, inform, and connect with the total Army, our industry partners, and supporters of a strong national defense. Today's episode was hosted by Sergeant Major retired Dan Dailey and anchor hosted by Carrie Viral-Hakis. The producer and writer is Anthony Del Call, and supervising sound editor is Andy Bosnack. And Zinga Curry is the executive producer, and the senior producers are Carrie Viral-Hakis and LaSharon Duncan. Special thanks to Angela King, Angela Pubel, and Michelle Kabotahe for their help. Be sure to subscribe to Army Matters wherever you get your podcasts, and please leave a review. As you know, we love seeing stars in the Army, especially if it comes in the form of a 5-star review. For questions or to provide topic recommendations, email us at podcast@ausa.org. I'm LaSharon Duncan. Hope you have a great Army day. Hooah!